Thank you guys for joining. We have the pleasure tonight of speaking with the LECOM students. And I want to give a big shout out to Amelia, who's my contact, and she organized this and helped me get the word out. And again, thank you guys for joining. At the end of the night, we will raffle off a set of Apple Airpods. So stick around for that. And I want to introduce myself. My name is Will. I'm the Academic and Industry Relation Manager for District 5. Um, Basically, I work for Aspen Dental Management. We're the support organization that supports the over 850 dentist-owned practices around the nation. We support the dentists in anything you can think of to help you guys, focus clinically on your patients. HR, supplies, really anything that will take away focus from you and the patients. We want you to have all that so you can help as many patients get the care that you need. In this chat, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Dickinson. I'm going to let him introduce himself here in a second. Basically, you guys have already sent in some questions. We'll start off with that. But as we're going, if something pops in your head, there's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to ask any questions. We want to be as transparent as possible. Dr. Dickinson, if you want to introduce yourself and kind of let the students know kind of what you do, where you're at, and then we'll get into the Q&A part of the webinar.
Sure. So I'm Scott Dickinson, and I have been with Aspen since 2009. I came to Aspen from private practice. I actually sold my private practice, which I had owned for about 7 years. And I transitioned into my career with Aspen. At this stage of the game, I have 5 offices, all in like the Pensacola area. So we're kind of clustered up here in the Panhandle. The LECOM students, most of them will know where that is, because down the road in Defuniak Springs, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half away. And I've done a little bit of everything for Aspen, actually. Obviously, I'm an owner doctor and a dentist. And for a little while, I worked with Dr. Judge, and I was on his team as the Vice President of Clinical Support, where I really helped build a lot of the onboarding programs and CE events for the doctors at that time. And love dentistry. So I have 7 doctors that work with me, and 8 hygienists as of today. And yeah, just great opportunities, and love to share what I know and what I've seen. And, if it offers some insights to people to want to give it a try, great. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. That's a great story, and we'll get into it. So my first question, and I always start off with, what I don't know. So you said you were in private practice for 7 years. Did you go right into private practice after dental school, or what options did you have, and how did you weigh your decision?
So to running joke with my friends, I have done a little bit of everything in dentistry. So when I went to dental school, I was actually on a scholarship from the Army. So when I graduated from dental school, I went right to boot camp. And when I came out of boot camp, I did an AEGD within the Army out in Colorado Springs. And that was about a year and a half. And then I entered into active duty military. And actually made me laugh, because when I got to my first duty station, which was infantry in upstate New York, 10th Mountain, they didn't have enough flight surgeons for the post. They needed 4 flight surgeons. They had 3. And I came, walking in with my rucksack and my shiny boots, and I hadn't been on post for a week. And my commander said, "We're sending you to flight surgeons residency. It's down in Alabama. It's 5 months long, so that when you get back, you can also be one of our flight surgeons." And I'm like, you can't say no, right? The guy outranks me. So I'm like, all right, well, no need to unpack. But it gave me a pretty interesting career with the Army. I did 6 years of active, and on every Wednesday I did flight physicals, and I flew. I was in rotary wing, so I was in Blackhawks and Hueys, and then the other 4 days of the week, I actually was assigned to a battalion, the 3rd Battalion, and I was their dentist. So they were like my patient pool. When I got out of the Army, my first job was with the University of Pennsylvania as an associate professor in the oral medicine department. And while I was doing that, I was also in private practice as an associate. Just, at that point, you're kind of trying to make some money. You're kind of trying to establish a career. And then I kind of followed that associate path through a couple of associateships that ultimately led to me buying the office from the gentleman that employed me, my boss, and he retired. And then 2 years after that, I actually brought a partner in to my private practice, and he actually came from a DSO, and he brought a wealth of knowledge into the private practice. We really changed a lot of the things that we were doing to be more efficient, and that was, and then his wife was a dentist. She wanted to buy in. The office wasn't big enough for 3 doctors, but at that point, Aspen was talking to me about coming over. So I sold the practice to him and his wife, which was nice. So I've done a little bit of everything. But I guess I would say at this stage of the game, I've actually been with Aspen long enough that I've done more time in a DSO than I did in the private practice realm. But I had probably almost 8 or 9 years in private practice between associateships and then owning an office.
Awesome. This question just came in. What would you say are the biggest differences, in your opinion, between a private practice setting and the work you've done with Aspen Dental?
It's really the support, and that's hard to. It's the support that's provided. When I was in private practice, all of the support that I needed to provide for myself, which either meant I did it, my partner did it, we tasked someone in the office to do it, but more often than not, you hire someone to do it, whether it's an accountant. You hire an accountant to come in. We hired a payroll company to come in, and each week they would kind of balance our books, make sure payroll was taken care of, submit payroll taxes. If you needed, I always call it like physical plant. Like if I needed upgrades in the office to purchase equipment, or if I needed to do something with an operatory that something needed to be repaired, you need people to help you facilitate all that. And in my private practice, I did it, or I employed people to do it. And what I found for me is that I either spent a lot of money employing people to do it for me, or I spent a lot of time when I wasn't in the chair doing dentistry, kind of doing these other things. When I joined Aspen, Aspen is a DSO. So that stands for Dental Service Organization. Probably everybody knows that. But really what they do is they provide me dental services, right? They're a management company. My offices are all registered in the state of Florida as private practices owned by Scott Dickinson. But I contract with Aspen. I employ Aspen, or we work together to manage my offices, payroll, taxes, HR, chains, supply chains. This year I'm going through what we call a refresh, which is basically I'm redecorating, right? I'm getting new floors and carpet. I'm getting all new dental chairs. We're repainting the walls, and they help facilitate all that. They help put equipment in front of me and say, which equipment do you want? Here's what it costs. Here's when they're going to install it. So the biggest difference is I feel like I run a private practice. This is my office. I'm here each day practicing. But when I need things and things need to happen, I have a network of people that I really email or call to make those things happen. So that's the experience for me. The second-hand experience, or to add on to that, is, I said when I started that I have 5 offices. I have 7 doctors that work with me, and I would never be able to do that. And maybe that's just me, but I would never be able to facilitate something like that out of private practice. I would never be able to have multiple locations and manage multiple locations and practice dentistry. Like, it would be unheard of. But I practice dentistry 5 days a week. I love it.
That's awesome to hear. So going back to you sold your private practice, you're thinking about joining Aspen. What were some of your fears about joining a DSO, and were those fears put to rest, or are they still out there?
My first biggest fear was Oh, you're gonna have quotas. They're gonna tell you you have to do these things, and if you don't complete those tasks, if you don't do, I mean, I'll give an example. If you don't do 30 crowns a month, 10 dentures, and 25 scaling and root plannings, you'll be underperforming. Your job's in jeopardy, you know, and this and that. That was my biggest fear. And then the other fear I had on top of that, for me personally, was if I'm providing the treatment, who's providing the treatment plan? I thought going in that I would actually have someone doing the treatment planning for me. That's what I was told. They're like, oh, you're just gonna sit down and they're gonna do whatever they put in front of you. So those are my biggest fears. Do they still exist? Well, if I could see the 56 faces out there, they'd all be going, oh yeah, I heard that last week, Dr. Joe, you know. So they're still out there, but what I can tell you is I hadn't even been in my office for a week, and I realized they were complete hogwash. And that gave me great relief. If I tell the truth, when I joined Aspen, I was going to work with Aspen for 3 to 6 months, earn some money, and go buy another private practice. That was like, I'm like, that's my plan. And I wasn't even 3 months in, and it was funny because my wife looked at me and she's like, I have never seen you happier practicing dentistry in your whole life. And I'm like, really? Because I'm kind of loving it again. And she's like, man, I know you had a plan, but you might want to scrap it. And I did. I scrapped it, and I mean, asking. I love it. I won't leave, but I mean, I'm old enough now that I can't leave, right? Like, but I would never leave. I can't. I'm glad I did it, and I saw it the other ways because maybe it was world experience. But the one thing I wish I'd done was I wish I'd joined sooner. I had an opportunity to interview with Aspen earlier than I did, and I didn't take it, which was my own fault. But those are the two biggies, and I tell you that they don't exist. If you're doing the treatment, you're doing the treatment plan. When my associates or other doctors I work with do the treatment plan, it's their treatment. Now they may say, hey, I don't have time to do these fillings. Will you do those fillings? I can get them in your book on Wednesday. Sure. But they're doing the treatment planning. It's what they think the patient needs, what they feel is best. And they pick the time units. So, I mean, if you love doing crowns and you want to have like a little quota for crowns for yourself, touche, I guess you can try to treatment plan those. But, you know, you really just do what you see. I mean, it's that easy. It really is.
Thank you for that answer. This question just came in. Regardless of quotas, did you feel any pressure to produce more than what you were doing in the past?
No. So what I experienced was, and I think what you will see when you're eventually in offices, private practice or DSO, there's work to do, and there's always going to be X amount of work to do. One of the things that was an eye-opener for me was, you know, there are no quotas. I never feel pressure to produce. The only pressure I feel, and this doesn't come from Aspen and it comes from myself, is that you have so many people that need your help. All right. So, and I don't have enough chair time. So it's not uncommon, and you'll see this in your practices out there, docs. You're going to get to the end of the second week or the beginning of the third week of the month, and you're not going to have any appointment slots left. So Mrs. Jones is going to walk in with a broken number 4, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do a buildup and a crown on that tooth. Mrs. Jones is uncomfortable, or at least she doesn't like the broken tooth, but you don't have a spot to put it. So the pressure you feel, or I feel, is trying to get patients into their care. But I never, you know, I've never had the management team or anyone ever tell me, you know, you're not producing enough. This isn't good enough from a dollar standpoint. I've had the management team say, Doc, you know, what I'd recommend would be, you know, maybe you should consider doing the buildup and the crown in the same appointment, right? Rather than separating them. Because for a little while I was doing a buildup and then 3 or 4 other fillings in the quadrant, and then I come back to the crown. Then I have the next crown appointment, and they're like, listen, if you focus on that tooth is done. And then when you seat the crown, do the other fillings. And now I've just saved the patient a couple of visits, and I was more efficient with my time. So that's really the only kind of guidance she'll be given. And truthfully, most of that comes from other dentists anyways, but yeah, no pressure to make money. It's not about that.
Awesome. So you've mentioned a couple of times that you work with 7 other dentists, that I'm sure they're associates and lead dentists all alike. So this question is, how long do you recommend to work as an associate before you decide to open your own practice? And how do you or should you find a mentor during and out of dental school?
That's a good question. Everyone's acumen is a little bit different. I would say give yourself at least a year, if you're an associate, to watch an office run, to learn what comes up so that you kind of know what you didn't know. And I would say that was an aha moment for me. My first associateship was a full year. I signed a year contract, stayed a whole year, and I learned a ton. I mean, not only from doing dentistry, but just watching this office run and kind of figuring out how they ran it. So that year was so valuable to me. The office that I bought, I worked with him. I actually worked with him for 6 months as his associate when he presented to me and said, I'd really like for you to consider buying this practice from me. And I will transition out slowly. He transitioned out over the course of about 8 to 12 months. And I kind of became the new lead, which gave him, gave the patients time to see the two of us together and be like, oh, this is normal. This feels right. So I think that those are probably some goals. Some people are very, very good at running business. I've met a few guys and girls that they just know it. Running the business will be the easy part for them, but getting efficient with your time at the dentistry, then that's the other challenge. So I think at least a year is a sweet spot. How do you find a mentor? My recommendation on that is find a dentist who has experiences that you want to learn from, but find someone who's going to be candid with you. I always tell doctors that there's a big difference between a mentor and a coach. And the difference is coach will give you a little bit of bad news, then he'll pull you and just put you on the bench. A mentor is going to work with you through it. They're going to coach you through it, but they never just pull you. And a mentor isn't a yes person. They aren't there to just always tell you, hey, you're doing great, good job. Hey, they're there. I have an associate with me right now, and I get in the weeds. I get into difficult cases, and I go grab her and I say, listen, doc, I need 20 minutes of your time. I want you to see how I'm going to address this, because it's going to happen to you eventually. And here's how I work through it, so that you can take things like that. Same thing with business questions or accounting questions. You need someone who's going to be straight with you, and who's committed to you. So I mean, if it's not a professor or someone that you know personally, then I mean, I guess a venue could be a dental society. Join a dental society, get to know people, find people there that you're like-minded with, and see if they'll help you get on your feet.
That's awesome. And this is kind of a follow-up. This question came in. What do you look for in associates? And when you find an associate, what does their onboarding training look like in your practices?
The biggest thing I look for in associates is I need someone who's coachable, someone who is willing to listen, someone who's willing to try it. It might not work for them. They may find a much better way of doing it, but willing to give it a try. New doctors, associate doctors come in with varying levels of clinical skills, and strengths in different areas. And that all comes with more time in the chair. As you see more patients and you do more of whatever it is we do on a daily basis, you just get better at it. And I want to help them with that too. But truthfully, the biggest help is just practice, right? Get in the chair and do the procedures. But for me, the doctors that have been very successful with me, the doctors that have been with me a long time, advanced to lead doctors, I have a partner, ongoing partner with a doctor. They're the doctors that are just always willing to be coached. And I've been a dentist a fairly long time, and I'm always willing to be coached, even by someone who's been out of school for a year or two, because I don't know what they know that I don't. And I'm always open to the ideas and listening. So that's the biggest quality I think an associate or a dentist coming into a practice needs. I have a pretty formal, I'm an Army guy, right? So I have pretty formal onboarding training. All of my associates spend their first month, 5 days a week, shoulder to shoulder with me in an office. We work together. And over that time, I introduce them to the different parts of the office that they're going to be involved in every day. What is that? Well, the very first thing I'm going to do is I sit down with them. I get them clinical procedures to do, and I make them very comfortable with the materials and instruments and armamentarium that we have in the office. If they're comfortable with it and they like it and they work with it, great. If they're like, hey doc, I used to use this product, I loved it. I said, okay, let's find it, we'll get some. But they need to know all the products. They need to be comfortable working with them and using them. And then, I introduce them to something else. I'll introduce them to like a new patient exam. Hey, watch and listen how this new patient exam happens. I want you to follow a patient all the way through. Listen to the DAs, listen to my hygienist, listen to the management team. What are they hearing? Are they hearing a consistent message? What does it feel like? So that when they're in there doing the treatment plans, which is usually after a week or two, and they just do a few a day to start with, they feel like they're part of the system and things start to flow. And then, I'll introduce them to, typically from there, they get into new patients. When I came to Aspen, I did not have a high comfort level with removable. So I spent a lot of time with my mentor doctor saying, show me what I don't know and show me how to get good results. Because in dental school, I did not get good results with removable. I found myself taking impressions 100 times, remounting cases, re-waxing up. So I'll introduce them to that. And then as they have a core, they kind of have a core to work with, I just let them go. I say, listen, you tell the manager how much time you need for these procedures, and I want you to sit down with the manager and start building your book. Start making your days look the way you want them to look. And then as they get more and more comfortable, they kind of grow through the office. And eventually, you start to see qualities where they're ready to be a lead doctor, and then you try to find them an opportunity to do that.
Good. This question just came in. You mentioned you did an AEGD. This question says, if somebody was considering an AEGD or a DSO, what would you recommend on how beneficial was the AEGD for you?
My AEGD was beneficial for me. And the reason why was when I got out of dental school, I didn't feel like I was ready to just sit down in an office and start seeing patients. Just here are the keys, drive the car, so to speak. So for that reason, I was very happy to get the AEGD. The biggest value of my AEGD was clinical experience. So as I look at that compared to DSOs, whether it be an Aspen or the other DSOs I'm kind of familiar with, in those respects, they're going to be the same. You're going to get a lot of clinical experience. I can speak for Aspen. You're going to, at least in my offices, doctors are never alone. So you're not just going to show up and it's you and you're running the show. Like you won't, there's always someone there with you, so that if you get in a spot or you have a question. If you're looking to an AEGD or a GPR really for experience, clinical experience you'll get with a DSO. You'll get the same clinical experience. If you're looking to delve further into specialties, to get a deeper taste of that, to see if you then want to specialize, well, then the AEG is going to offer you something a little different.
Awesome. That's a good answer. A lot of doctors give a different answer, so that's good. We have another question that just came in. Were you able to pick the other dentists in the office you work with? Do you seem to get along with all the other dentists on staff? Do you work through advanced cases together, or are the patients on your roster primarily yours?
Yes, I'm fortunate. I got to pick the doctors I work with. Because in my very first office, I was the only doctor. Then I hired an associate. You can see it just kind of tumbleweeds from there. I get along with all of them. I don't know if they would all say the same thing about me if you got them in a closed room, but we respect each other a ton. And in my offices, especially with me, My complex cases, my what I would consider difficult cases or more advanced cases, I always work through with another doctor, even if it's a seasoned MCD, like we're working together and I'm like, hey, you've seen this before, but work through this with me, see where I am, see what I'm doing. Really, you can never get too much experience when it comes to that. So.
Good question. Thank you for the questions that are coming in. Keep them coming. Will you hire someone straight out of school in your practice? Let's see. Sorry. Yeah. Do you hire people right out of school?
I do. As a matter of fact, probably you can come on in. I would say the last large number of hires for me have come straight out of school and have grown with me. So, yep, I see a lot of that, and actually, I think it's a strength because you know you come in, and I find that students are still in that learning mode a little bit, where their minds are open and they're like, oh wow, you know, they want to get in it and do it. But can I talk? But they're really receptive to kind of being introduced to the office.
Yeah, and I'll send a shout out to Doc. We worked together at our first virtual vibe with last year being a pandemic. We normally do an in-person meet and greet with potential doctors. We weren't able to do that in person, but we did a virtual one in November. And we were able to, doctor was able to interview a candidate who's a D4 at LECOM, and doctor extended an offer. So he'll have a LECOM D4 starting once he gets his credentialing, I assume sometime this summer. And we are having another one because it was so successful. It's going to be February, and hopefully get that out to you guys, and hopefully Dr. Dickinson will participate again. But yeah, we not even Dr. Dickinson, but our virtual vibe is going to be about 100 doctors like Dr. Dickinson looking for potential candidates to join us, you know, over the summer once you finish school. So just keep that in mind. When you are, I guess, when should you start looking for a position as you're finishing your school or going through schooling? At what point would you recommend somebody start looking for a position?
If it's very site specific, AKA, you know, you want to be in Jacksonville, I would start at the end of your third year or in the early fourth year. For everybody else who's kind of wide open and a blank slate, I would say in your fourth year. There's going to be a lot, you're going to find there are a lot of opportunities out there and they don't look the same. So you want to have time to interview, you want to have time to think about it, you want to have time to talk with your friends and say, hey, what are you doing? What do you think? Because there's good opportunity out there right now, and you're gonna have a lot of offers. It's if I'm candid, it's that simple. And you don't want to just jump at the first offer. You just don't want to be like, man, that was awesome, unless it feels right. But you know, give yourself some time.
Okay, and we'll get into a couple of these. A couple questions on income. Is there a cap as far as your income is concerned when you're working with a DSO, or I guess Aspen, unless you can speak for other DSOs?
I'll speak for Aspen because that's safe. There is no cap on your income. It's pretty easy. Aspen's unique, or at least was very unique to me when I came to them, and they're still structured the same. But you know, you get a base salary, which was very comforting for me and my wife at the time, because we knew we had bills to pay and I had kids. And then you get your incentive, and I always call it an incentive and not a bonus. It's an incentive because you earn it. You earn it. But there's no limit to that incentive, and there's no limit to earning potential in Aspen, because the growth in Aspen's a little different. You can go from an associate to an MCD. That's a pretty good pay jump. When you go from an MCD to a partner, now you're getting into ownership. That's another pay jump. When you go from partnership in one office to multiple offices, obviously it's continuing to grow. And that's one of the things, that's one of the things that attracted me the most with the company. I was amazed at how much more there was to do than being just a dentist. And I have more of my friends are in private practice than DSOs. and they do well. But in private practice, I'll speak, on behalf of a couple of friends of mine that are up in Philadelphia, and then of course for mine, you kind of meet a terminal velocity, AKA your office can only do so much with you in it, and then you've got to grow it and take it in different directions. Sometimes those directions are successful, sometimes they aren't. But from the income, there's no ceiling.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable answering how much money does the average dentist make per year, or
Sure.
would you feel more comfortable? Okay, well, let's go with that.
I'll tell you, and I'm working off of averages, and I'll mix in my doctors. My associates will typically, I would say associates within Aspen are typically going to make in their first calendar year probably around $175,000, maybe up to $200,000, depending on the doctor they're partnered with. And as you grow to understand how doctors are paid, how those incentives are reached, it's how does the office itself grow? You get a little piece of the entire office. My MCDs are all, I'd say Aspen would tell you that an MCD in the company is going to make between $250,000 and $330,000. I will tell you that as a one office POP owner, you'll do better than that, probably by another 30%. And then as you grow that office, anytime an office grows, everyone inside it grows. But that's realistic. And then then all bets are off. I mean, we have some owners like me that own multiple units, some owners that just own one or two. There are a couple of guys out there that own a lot. I've got a good friend down in kind of the Orlando market who's got 14. That's a big piece of pie to take a bite of. I don't know how he juggles it sometimes. He's doing great, but I can only imagine he's probably doing fairly well.
Yeah, and I'll just add, for associates, the average starting salary is $600. That's a day. Plus, doctor talked about the incentive. So, coming in, you have that daily rate that's not going to be taken from you. There's no quotas on it. You get that regardless, and then you and the whole team work together for that incentive. So, another common question I get coming in is, how much you talked about you guys pull together. So is there any instances where you've had doctors that didn't want to give up certain procedures, or, I hear, you hear a lot of people, their DSOs say that you have to fight for the procedures to meet your quotas and things like that. Have you heard about that happening at Aspen?
No, you will be happy to share everything, because it's all about the success of the office. Doesn't matter if you're doing it or if the associate's doing it or the other associate's doing it, right? The thing that's important is that it's getting done. It just has to get done. I've never held on to a procedure. I've never worked with a doctor in an Aspen unless they know them and it's like their mother-in-law or something, and they're like, no, I really need to do this. But never motivated via production.
Okay. Thank you for all that transparency. Let's get into a little bit of the technology that goes on in your practice. Does Aspen use any digital impression systems?
We sure do. So I have in all my offices, and you will find them in almost all Aspen offices, iTero scanners. So that iTero, they're the 3D imaging scanner. It's an open platform. The tech guys out there know what that means. But yeah, I do almost, when it comes to Crown and Bridge, I'm 100% scanned from an impression. Obviously, Invisalign is obviously all scanned. And actually, a large part of the partial dentures that I do, I work with a couple of labs that can do flexible partials from a scan and frameworks from a scan, which is super nice because I can scan it, it emails out, they open it, they basically 3D print a cast, and then we'll cast a framework or a partial to it and send it back to me. And I have them in a week. So the technology there is great. The scanners are great. And that's actually, and you may know this too, as a company, that's something that the company feels very strong in. They really want to grow in scanner technology, even to the point where they want to explore everything we can do with a scanner and kind of incorporate that everywhere, right from implants to stent place, making stents for implants, to restorations. I actually scanned an implant body yesterday, which was really cool. I put it right on the implant itself, scanned the implant body with my iTero, sent that to my lab, and I'll get a custom abutment and a crown back in a week.
Awesome. And then somebody just asked, do we have any CBCT technology?
Yep. There are a lot of CBCTs in the company. CBCTs, they aren't cheap. So I own one and I use it as a hub and spoke. What does that mean? I put it in my most centrally located office. In all of our scans, we send to that office. They get scanned, but every doctor in every office has access to reading the scans and sitting down with the software technology to make, to either make, design the case and or make the stents, the surgical stents.
Is there one person that does all the implants, or are your doctors trained to do implants, or?
Everybody is trained. This is Aspen wide. If you join Aspen in your first year, you're going to get almost 40 hours of didactic training in treatment planning, building a case, and restoring the case. And everybody gets that. In my group, we have an oral surgeon. We have the oral surgeon place all the implants. Sometimes my doctors want to be there during placement for a variety of reasons. Usually I think it's just to get experience. Sometimes we take impressions at time of placement, then we can cover them, but when they heal and integrate, we already have the restoration ready. But we have an oral surgeon that does all the placing for us. But Aspen even has a live hands-on placement class that they work with. They work with one university internationally, and then we work with, actually, I'm in the Panhandle, so we work with UAB. UAB has a big implant placement program that we get trained up on.
Okay, awesome. And then you mentioned 40 hours of training. So the question was, does Aspen offer free CEs or free CE courses?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously all that didactic training and everything is, it's all vetted. You can submit it for relicensure. I think it's all ADA CERP certified. And they have a lot of other courses like it. So yes, Aspen will provide a ton of CE for you. And then they actually also have a website, kind of a landing platform, a Viva Learning landing platform that probably just has thousands of hours of CE courses, and you just sign up for them. They don't cost anything.
Yeah. And we also had, as a company, during the pandemic, with people being out of work and being at home, we opened up our CE course book to everybody. It's aspendentalce.com/welcome. All you got to do is go on there, and you have access to all the CEs that our doctors have access to. I think they said that's going to go till the end of May. So, just get on and look and see what you can do. And if in your free time, it's all free. You don't pay for anything, and you can get some CEs that way. So yeah, the good questions. Next question that just came in is, what are the hours like from office to office? I guess the normal working hours that your practices are open, and do you have doctors that don't work 5 days a week, or how does that work in your practices?
Offices are hours are pretty standard. So I'm open 8 to 6 Monday through Thursday, and 8 to 1 on Fridays, and then I'm open one Saturday a month. We're just, I think Saturdays are from 8 to 2. We elect, actually, a lot of times we elect, my group, the doctors and the hygienists will elect to do a second Saturday. I think doctors like it because they can bring in bigger cases, and they get to spend more time with them. And sometimes I'll go in with them and like, hey, let's take on that veneer case on Saturday, and we'll open it. We'll open it Saturday up. I don't have any doctors that work part-time, that don't work the 5 days. I would be open to it. But most of the doctors that I've interviewed are looking for full-time work. And I think anybody, and there are probably always variations, but for the most part, most people want to work all 5 days at the same office. versus, maybe working over here 2 days and over here 3 days, because, it could limit their growth in either place if they're kind of juggling themselves.
And this question just came in. Does Aspen Dental offer benefits outside of pay for doctors that are working with the company?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be more than I'm about to list, but the ones that I know of very readily are, obviously, there's medical insurance. You don't really need dental, but there's dental insurance, but it's in office. There's 401k and a 401k match. There is disability insurance that you'll be given. Will cover your malpractice insurance. You'll be eligible for things like life insurance and short-term disability like AFLAC. Trying to think, they even actually, it's kind of cool. I did this last year. They actually even have a legal service benefit where you can pay a little bit out of each check. I think it's like $100 a year. So I don't know what that is per check. It's like probably $5 a check or something. But if you want to review contracts, write contracts, you have access to like legal documents and legal review up to a certain number of hours. They really have the full array of benefits. That's an advantage that a DSO will bring versus a private practice. I always say with a DSO, any of them, you're going to have an HR department and all of that at your disposal. And the HR departments are fantastic because they protect us from inequities, and they offer us things because we're a larger group, right? Like Aspen's got 850 offices. We've got a couple thousand doctors. We can get a really good price on disability insurance or life insurance or health insurance. So actually our health insurance price is fantastic. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, and I think you listed almost everything. I didn't hear PTO, but all dentists that come aboard have 2 weeks of PTO after 90 days where, as long as you talk to the owner doctors and there's coverage for the patients, you take it off just like vacation and you still get paid, while you're on the beach, drinking the pina coladas or whatever. So, what are a few things that separates Aspen from other dental corporations, if you know of any?
The biggest difference between Aspen and the other real big ones, and there are a few other really big DSOs. The biggest difference, honestly, is ownership. Aspen's the only DSO where you can buy your office, right? You can partner in your office. That was something that was incredibly appealing to me because I liked owning an office and I liked the advantages of owning an office. I didn't like all the management side of it, and I love having the help, but they're available. And that's a big difference. I mentioned earlier, my partner in my private practice came from a different DSO, a very big DSO, and they didn't offer ownership to him in his office. There were some growth avenues for him, but nothing like owning the show. And I think that the dental American dream, we all have when we're in school is someday we want to own our own office and be part of that. And it exists here. For me, you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I think that's a great opportunity that hopefully a lot of you guys will have. This question that I don't even think I know, but how much of the practice does Aspen own versus how much do you own? And then are you able to sell the practice to anyone looking to buy at any time freely?
I own all of the office. Aspen's a dental service organization. The contract, so there are certain things Aspen and I will share because they're things we both use, and we share that cost. An example might be management, my director or my regional manager, or there's a hygiene coach in the area, and Aspen pays for part of the hygiene coach. I pay for part of the hygiene coach, but I own all of the office. I can sell the office to whomever I choose, as long as that person isn't. I can sell the office to anyone I choose. That's the straight answer. But I would not recommend selling the office to someone that doesn't believe in the culture and want to work and perform like an Aspen office. Um, there have been a lot of office sales within Aspen. What does that mean? We've had doctors that have retired that have wanted to sell their office. We have had doctors that wanted to move. I've got a good friend in Aspen who moved from Maine to Florida. But actually selling them was really quite easy because he had MCDs or partners or associates that were interested in the opportunity. And they said, hey, before you go list this thing on a dental trader website, let's talk. I mentioned earlier on this call, I have a partner, which I'm super excited about. I love having a partner. I'm a lot older than my partner, so I'll probably retire before my partner. But I mean, it's just a natural succession of things as I, if I hit my 5-year plan and I'm starting to phase out, well, then we just phase them all the way in, right? So I think probably practice sales is a little easier in an Aspen than it might be in private practice. Although in private practice, you can give it to anybody and you don't really have to. I wouldn't be comfortable with that, but you could.
Yeah, and I think we'll follow up, but these next two questions, I think will have similar answers. But does Aspen offer a loan repayment program as part of the salary? And the other question is, how long can it take to get an ownership opportunity?
First question, yes, Aspen has programs where there's loan repayment or loan, I don't think they call it forgiveness. And it's a set amount of money. And just so you know, those set amounts of money aren't dictated by Aspen. They're actually dictated by the government. The government has different loan repayment structures. And I've done that with 2 of my doctors, actually. And both of them have been with me long enough that actually this past summer, it reached full maturity and they got like the last big chunk toward their student loans. I already forgot the second question. What was the second one?
Well, on the loan repayment, I thought a lot of the doctors will say that it depends on the location. So
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Areas that are harder to fill will have loan repayments. So if that's something you're interested in, it may not be in Orlando or Jacksonville or Tampa, but there are opportunities available. And the other one was, how long can it take to get an ownership opportunity?
My partner made MCD in 7 months, and we'll be full partners at the end of this month. And I want to say that's about 1 year and 4 months on partnership. I've seen both things go faster. So I think realistically within 1 year's window, if you're in the right location with the right team, you can go partner in 1 year. I can see that happening.
Yeah, and a lot of it will come down. I have District 5. Louisiana State's a part of that. So a doctor I had on, joined the company from private practice, and after 6 months, he was ready to purchase the office, and we're ready to partner. So it can go relatively fast, especially in newer markets. Louisiana was a newer market, so we want owners. We want people to come in and build the brand in those newer markets. So in Florida, I hear it's pretty saturated. So ownership opportunity in Florida may not be there as fast as it would somewhere else. So great questions. We got about 10 minutes left. So if you have any other last minute questions, bring them in. Let's see. What kind of give back does Aspen or you specifically do you have in your communities, or do we have any programs that we have?
Aspen has a lot of programs. We're very big on giving back to veterans. That's near and dear to my heart because I'm a veteran myself. We give back, and we have structured days where we just do free dentistry on veterans. We have the mobile bus. COVID made it incapacitated for last year, but we have a mobile dental unit that drives around the country and sees patients for free in different communities. I've had the bus here a few times. Aspen has international outreach with dentistry. So they have international mission trips where they bring dentistry and dental teams and all the supplies and everything to, they've been to Africa. I know they've been to South America. I think they were in, I think it was even in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. They do one every year, one or two every year. And actually my hygienist went on the last one to Africa. She loved it. They were gone a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have all those things that doctor mentioned. So, you know, if you're worried about giving back to the communities, we want to be the brand that gives back. This question just came in. Can you explain what advantages you had being partnered with Aspen during a pandemic?
Oh my gosh. Aspen was that was about the best thing that ever happened to me, being partnered with Aspen during the pandemic. I will tell you this, Aspen was a week ahead of everyone else. They were 2 weeks ahead of the ADA, because I sat on a committee through the pandemic with the ADA, an advisory committee. And I used to always kind of smile. I'm like, man, guys, we already skinned that cat. Like, you got to move on. It was nothing short of amazing. I will tell you that Bob and the ADMI team were on it. They were on it 100%. We had it for a stretch there. We had every other day, basically telecom calls like this to understand, what was going on with the pandemic, what was the direction of the CDC, how is this going to impact our offices? If it was going to impact the offices, here was going to be our response. I will tell you, Aspen, as that pandemic was just starting, established 3 or 4 of its own supply chains outside of its normal supply chains for PPE. They provided anything and everything the CDC said we needed to have. I mean, you name it, and I didn't even have to order it. They just shipped it to every office. Just boom. They were 100% ahead of the curve in helping their doctors apply for and get those PPP loans. So although I had to close my offices for about 2.5 weeks, I never stopped paying anybody. I was made fully aware, helped with the application, and received those PPP dollars, which came from the government, so people could get paid without, in a time where the office wasn't producing any money, which is what those loans were designed to do. And it was amazing. I didn't lose one employee. Through that whole pandemic, and I have like 70 employees in the offices. They were amazing. And to this day, we still have monthly update calls. They're constantly looping us in on what's going on. People are getting vaccinated. I actually got my vaccine today right here. It's a little tender. Just in the guidelines for vaccines, where are they available? Sending you a PDF that says proof of employment and this and that, like everything you need. Like they're amazing about it. I would not have been able to do that in my private practice. There's no way, just no way.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And we're all about transparency here at Aspen Dental. So thank you for this question that just came in with the hype for Aspen. And in parentheses, I know this is to promote Aspen, but what is a negative to a DSO from your standpoint in general?
So it's kind of an interesting, so it's a negative. It's a negative, but it's kind of not. So here's what you have to learn when you work with a DSO. I own my practice. I partner with a DSO, and a DSO's job is to follow industry trends, maximize on how do we educate and grow our doctors in our offices to fill those trends, whether it be digital scanning instead of PVS, CBCTs instead of Panorex, whether it be whatever those trends are, right? Clear aligners, going to the general dentist, not the orthodontist. So the downside is, and I was laughing with my regional manager. Right now, I have a lot of initiatives. It's the beginning of the year. The company's been really clear with me and said, this is where we see and we believe dentistry is going this year. These are going to be the trends. These are going to be the areas of growth and opportunity for you. But right now, I'm not trained up and ready, right? So I joke that, I'm 49 and I have got to dig in and learn and know, and I need to transform myself and my offices to not only do what they were doing last month or last year, but to do what they need to do this year. And I will tell you, there are times that you're going to be exhausted and you're going to look at your regional manager and you'll be like, listen, if you ask me to do one more thing, to try one more thing, I'm going to lose all my hair. But and it can be frustrating sometimes, but I tell you, that's how you stay ahead of that. That's how you grow. That's how this doesn't become dull and monotonous. And that's their job. Like, you have to know that going in. Like, I kind of vent sometimes about it. I never get mad at Aspen for it, because that's their job. Their job is to constantly say, Doc, can we do this? What do you think about this? I'm noticing this. How about this? Would you be willing to try that? An example would be, I do Invisalign. I love Invisalign. It's easy. It's great. I'm fully trained. And now there's some talk about, well, you know what? There are other clear aligner systems that maybe are a little bit better for some of our patients, because you don't need as many trays and the price point's lower. And I'm like, man, I just fell in love with Invisalign, But am I willing to do it? Yeah, I am, because I know that the company understands that everyone wants a straight smile, but not everyone can afford this. So what if we can partner here and bring straight smiles to people for less? So anyways, I think that answers your question.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. So the last question is, and then I'll have Dr. pick a number and we'll select a winner for the set of Apple AirPods. Is you just started doing Invisalign. Is there anything that, as a company, we just started doing Invisalign, I feel like about 12 to 18 months, maybe 2 years ago. What kind of training did you and your team go through to launch, a system like Invisalign to the patients?
Yep. Well, pre-COVID, all of my teams went off-site. So I sent them to Nashville to basically Invisalign. They call it, I think it's called Lift. And you go for a weekend and you hear from the Invisalign instructors and they show you how to do it, and you're scanning and you're learning and you're treatment planning. They're showing you what it can do, what it can't do. Then they put you on their website so that you've got like ClinCheck and access to their doctors to ask questions and this and that. So it's pretty formal training. We're just still doing all those things. We're just not doing them in person. So actually, in 2 weeks, all of the people that didn't get to do that were on my teams, and all of my new hires will do it again. They still get a weekend, but it's going to be all Zoom, just like this. And then they bring those skills into the office.
Awesome. That's good to hear that they're still doing that.
Yeah.
So before we have Dr. pick a number, remember free CEs, aspendentalce.com/welcome if you want to check out our library and see what that's all about. And then February 6th, we're going to be having another virtual vibe, a possible hiring event where doctors like Dr. Dickinson will be doing interviews and hopefully extending offers that day, and hopefully you guys can get something lined up. So let's see. Everybody who registered is entered. So Doc, I'm gonna have you pick a number between 1 and 76.
1 and 76. I will do 55.
Okay. Okay, so Jane Lee is the winner of the set of Apple AirPods. So thank you for registering, Jane Lee. I will be in contact with you. If you guys have any other questions, you have my email address. If you have any questions for Dr. Dickinson, I'll be happy to put you in touch with him. Again, I appreciate you guys giving us the time this evening to, get some of your questions answered. And I'll let you guys go. Anything you want to close with, Dr. Dickinson?
No, I mean, it's an exciting time in your careers. Obviously, I know you've got kind of some heavy lifting in front of you when it comes to the schoolwork and boards and all of that. But enjoy it. Take some time and soak it in, because you're only going to get to do it once. I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you and working with some of you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dickinson. Enjoy your evening as well, and everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.